In at 10, T'Challa. In the year 1988, within the hidden nation of Wakanda, T'Chaka, the ruler, cautions his young son T'Challa against venturing beyond their borders, emphasizing the suffering and devastation that exists in the outside world. However, driven by curiosity, T'Challa defies his father's advice one night and ventures to the outskirts of Wakanda. Unbeknownst to him though, the powerful force field that conceals the nation attracts the attention of Yondu Onoda's subordinates, who mistakenly abduct T'Challa due to the cosmic energy emanating from Wakanda's vibranium meteorite. In space, Yondu then reprimands his crew for snatching the wrong person, but decides to welcome T'Challa nonetheless, recognizing his adventurous spirit. Impressed by T'Challa's exploratory nature, Yondu extends an invitation to join the Ravagers and explore the vast expanse of the galaxy. Fast forward 20 years, where T'Challa, now known as Star-Lord, successfully retrieves the orb from its chamber. However, his actions draw the attention of Korra the Pursuer and two Sakarans who are sent by Roman the Accuser to get the artifact. This is just it's from an episode of What If, you know, the MCU animated series on Disney Plus. So if you want the full story along with Thanos and the rest, be sure you watch that episode because it's good, pretty good. In at 9, Guardians 3000. As the ruler of the dwindling Spartax Empire, Star-Lord of Earth 691 found himself leading the remnants of his war fleet. In a critical turn of events, he was summoned by the Guardians of the Galaxy along with the remaining leaders of the Galactic Council to address a grave situation. This involved the human Gina Drake and a temporal anomaly that reset their family, returning them to the beginning of a war they had previously won. Amidst an unexpected ambush orchestrated by the Brotherhood of the Badoon, Star-Lord courageously fought alongside his fellow Guardians, determined to create an opening for their escape. United by their mission, they braved the chaos and danger together, striving to overcome the odds and protecting their cause. He has a pistol capable of conjuring one of the 4 elements, and Peter Quill of This Earth has also mentioned that he inherited his armor, element, gun, and ship when he became Star-Lord. So it could mean that this isn't really an alternate version of Star-Lord, but rather his descendant. Gina Drake also suggests it as they meet Earth 616 Star-Lord, and it's revealed in Guardians 3000 number 6 that Peter was born on Spartax in 2985.
Number 8, Punisher Noir. The 2009 Noir series from Marvel Comics saw several heroes existing in the Prohibition era post-World War I. Kicking off with the hit of Spider-Man Noir, other characters like Iron Man, Daredevil, the X-Men, and of course, the Punisher soon followed. In this timeline, Frank Castiglione Sr. was a hero of World War I, who had a huge skull tattoo on his chest as a means of intimidating his German opponents in the trenches. And he was also like an American James Bond style hero going on missions against the Russians and Germans. Unfortunately though, when he returns from the war, he finds himself dispatched from life because of his previous government missions. I bet you thought he would be the Punisher here, huh? Well, you're wrong, because after finding his father's arsenal, Frank Jr. wears a skull emblazoned balaclava and hunts down his father's executioners, who turn out to be noir versions of Jigsaw, Bullseye, and Barracuda, before a final run-in with a fan favorite, the Russian. While some of the noir characters missed the mark in my eyes, Punisher Noir is actually pretty great. Number 7, 5 Ronin. While we're on the topic of historical versions of Frank Castle, I have to mention one of my favorite little stories. 5 Ronin from 2011 moves the Marvel Universe back in time to ancient feudal Japan, with 5 issues each focusing on samurai versions of the Punisher, the Hulk, Deadpool, Psylocke, and Wolverine. It is so cool. Each character gets a short standalone story where all of them eventually encounter the wandering Deadpool, who narratively links them all together for us. This version of the Punisher shows him returning to Japan from war in Korea to find a rival has taken the opportunity to take away his family and claim his land. As is usually the case with Frank Castle, or in this world, Akagi, this leads to some ruthless revenge. Wielding a katana and a big old blunderbuss that I forget the name of, Samurai Frank brings a decided end to anyone that attempts to cross his path during his quest for vengeance. Number 6, Franken Castle. After he was taken off the board by Dakin on orders from Norman Osborn during the Dark Reign event, Frank Castle, yes, the Punisher, was revived by the Legion of Monsters as an undead zombie-like monster known as Franken Castle. The Legion resurrected Frank to recruit him in their fight against the villain known as Hellsguard, who was systematically taking out monsters using samurai-like assassins. Although he originally refused to help them, Frank got involved after seeing some innocent little monsters being dispatched too, and that is not something Frank is willing to abide. He went on to slay hordes of Hellsguard's men. It's honestly an incredibly interesting moment in Frank Castle's history, and it got this version of Frank moved to Earth 666. He also nearly enacted revenge against Daken, being stopped by Wolverine before he was returned to his human form through the Bloodstone. But he kept going on in 666, and it's really cool. Number 5. Marvel Universe versus the Punisher. In this universe, the Punisher interrupts an arms deal involving what he thinks is a briefcase nuke, only to discover that it is in fact a man-made virus that, for Frank Castle, makes him immune to infection, illness, and disease. That's pretty good, but it didn't quite do this for everyone else though. Problem here is that the chemical weapon found its way into the water supply and then into the food and started in New York, spreading to the whole world through infected travelers. And then it started turning people and heroes into starting with Spider-Man. An outbreak spread and led to insane events, including a war against the cannibals, who then became the dominant beings of this earth. But the real star of the show is Frank Castle, the Punisher. This is one of the greatest and most brutal Punisher stories ever. It plays on many of his character's flaws and strengths, but the story also shows him defeating so many different heroes who you and I have always wanted to see him face, and who we doubt he would actually be able to defeat, but he does it anyways. It's also a surprisingly deep story that has a ton of awesome moments. Definitely check it out. Number 4. Cosmic Ghost Rider. In the Thanos Wins story arc from writers Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw from Thanos Volume 2, one hero who ended up surviving the attack on the Earth by an alternate timeline Thanos was actually Frank Castle, but he did it in a bit of a different way. Frank was hit with debris and actually passed on pretty easily during the final stand against Thanos on Earth. Definitely a lame way to go. So once Frank made it to Hell, he made a deal with Mephisto to return to Earth for vengeance, and he was given the power to do just that as the Ghost Rider, the spirit of vengeance. Unfortunately, when this new Ghost Rider showed back up on Earth, everything was already lost. Being completely alone in the ruins of Earth, Frank went completely insane. Eventually, as he does, Galactus showed up, and being the only Earthling left alive, and a very powerful one at that, Frank made a deal. Galactus was allowed to have the Earth if Galactus made Frank his new herald, granting Frank the power cosmic as well as the spirit of vengeance. These two spent hundreds of years together until Thanos completely flattened Galactus. Then, Frank became King Thanos' #1 dude, going on time-hopping adventures and being completely awesome. Number 3. Space Punisher. In 2012, Marvel showed us a very different version of Frank Castle when they released a 4-issue run called Space Punisher. The series is nuts, super colorful, and heavily inspired by the pulpy sci-fi of the 1950s. There's an awesome robotic sidekick, insane versions of Marvel superheroes and supervillains, including an absolutely monstrous and terrifying version of the Hulk, but it's all centered around a ponytailed, laser sword, blaster-wielding version of the Punisher who finds himself facing space werewolves, space fascists, and space supervillains. It is worth noting, however, that this little weird Punisher story was divisive as hell. Very different from anything before it, Space Punisher was unique to say the least, but it's a comic book. If you can get past the weirdness, it's kind of enjoyable. Number 2. Netflix. We have had 3 movies of debatable quality that have brought Frank Castle to the screen, and while Ray Stevenson and Thomas Jane, and I guess Dolph Lundgren did decent jobs as Frank Castle, when Jon Bernthal showed up as the Punisher in the 2nd season of Netflix's acclaimed Daredevil show, he did it better than anyone before him. Or, at least for me, it was the most believable version of the Punisher I had ever seen on a screen. Bernthal brought fury and intensity at all times, almost to the point of seeming positively insane, especially when compared with the morals of Matt Murdock. His character was also incredibly capable and brutal, as is necessary for the Punisher to work. When he got his own show in 2017, it brought everything to a whole different level, telling a conspiracy story that also took a really good look at PTSD in soldiers, while also bringing the right amount of brutality that you'd expect from a Punisher story. Even my mom liked this show, and she doesn't even read comics. That's the highest praise I know how to give. And coming in at number 1, Punisher Max. Punisher Max was an adult comic, and for a guy whose main thing is ushering people to the pearly gates, it makes sense that this setting suits his character best. Removing the Punisher from all the costumes and superpowers of the regular Marvel universe and dropping him right into an America facing the early days of the War on Terror, it kicked off with the CIA trying to recruit Frank, which sets off a hugely violent political game. This Frank Castle was a veteran of the Cold War, running Black Ops alongside Nick Fury in Vietnam, and he is not someone you want to mess around with. Like, he lights out Microchip during the first storyline just for helping the CIA to even find Frank Castle. He's These enemies here are also much more threatening and scarily realistic compared to anything that Earth-616 has thrown at the Punisher. With a big shout out to Barracuda specifically, another former soldier just as ruthless and skilled as Frank is. Punisher Max shows the very real physical and emotional damage that Frank Castle's crusade would cause him in real life. Obviously with a tiny suspension of disbelief that comes with a comic book. If you choose to give it a read, just be warned that it is extremely graphic and you shouldn't read it unless you're over the age of like, I'd say 18. Starting off the list today at number 10 is Red Death. The Dark Multiverse was given to us largely by telling the story of multiple different versions of Batman who have each been twisted into a corrupted, villainous version of Bruce Wayne. Brought together by the Batman Who Laughs, the Dark Knights are basically like an evil collection of Batman from across the Dark Multiverse, each one standing in or representing a member of the Justice League. Arguably one of the most popular of these Batmen would be Red Death, an evil Bruce Wayne with the powers of the Flash. In his dark reality, Bruce Wayne was pushed to the limit after losing so many of his sidekicks, which should be a good reason for why he should stop recruiting younglings to be his Robins, but I digress. Believing that he needed to be more brutal in his crime fighting and that he would be better at using the Speed Force than Barry Allen, Bruce took down Flash's rogues, took their equipment, and then used it against his fellow Justice Leaguer. Batman then strapped Barry to his Batmobile, fused it together with the Cosmic Treadmill, and then he drove it all into the Speed Force, absorbing Barry and his powers. Bruce, now empowered with the Speed Force and much more evil than he should be, became the Red Death and joined with the Batman Who Laughs and his Dark Knights. Number 9. Last Son. While the majority of characters given to us from DC's Dark Multiverse are alternates of Batman, thanks to the Batman Who Laughs and his Dark Knights, the Dark Multiverse is a place where everything can go wrong with anyone. Probably the most alarming of the Dark Multiverse alternates would be the dark versions of Superman, and the Last Son, in my mind, stands above the rest. This version of Kal-El came from a dark universe corrupted by the Darkest Night, and instead of crash landing straight on Earth from the destruction of Krypton, Superman's rocket got lost and exposed to the cosmic storm of a black hole. When he finally reached his destination, Earth, the last son of Krypton was burning with the energy of 1,000,000 suns. It sounds super cool, and Last Son looks absolutely amazing, but his whole concept is based on Superman's fear of becoming overcharged by the sun, and his capabilities are through the roof. He's terrifying.
And it ain't Lord Starkill. Peter Quill, known as Lord Starkill in his home universe of Earth 25271, was a notorious space pirate and leader of the Ravagers. He had a personal vendetta against Corporal Carol Danvers, the leader of the rival Zeta flight pirates. Thanos the Just was a wise and noble peacekeeper who had hired Quill to retrieve a displaced reality stone from another universe. Quill laid in wait on the planet of Gaia, anticipating the emergence of Dr. Eve and her MIM unit from an ancient temple with the reality stone, and with his trusty element rifle he skillfully incapacitated both targets from a safe distance and then claimed the stone for himself. During his journey back to the hideout, Quill contacted Thanos, much to the latter's dismay, as he preferred not to be associated with the individuals of Quill's reputation, but upon his return the hideout was suddenly attacked by the Zetas with assistance from Widower. The Ravagers valiantly fought back, managing to restrain the entire enemy team, but in a controversial move, Lord Starkill proposed selling his nemesis and her crew to Thanos to clear his own name. That's definitely a cutthroat move, and you know what, Quill? I respect it. Those are the kind of go-get-em attitudes we need in space. And it's 7. Gamora. Following the presumed demise of Peter Quill, Gamora donned his mask and assumed the mantle of Star-Lord on Earth TRN-421, taking charge as leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy. The team consisted of Drax, Groot, Rocket, Iron Man, and Charlie-27. Their mission was to confront the formidable Silver Galactus, who had absorbed the power of the Silver Surfer and become even more ravenous than ever before, and at the Forsaken Gates of Asgard, where the gods were absent, the Guardians faced off against their former teammate Vance Astro, who had become the latest Herald of Galactus. Vance deployed an army of Punisher robots to keep the Guardians occupied while his master targeted their base at nowhere. Meanwhile, Quill, who was assumed dead, had cleverly faked his demise and taken on the persona of Major Victory, infiltrating the ranks of the Heralds of Galactus to earn the trust of Silver Galactus. So, Damn. In its sixth Nova, Star-Lord and his partner Gamora, both of Earth 94241, were a daring duo with a shared mission to locate the elusive Infinity Stones. Their first successful heist involved stealing the Space Stone from the devastated Nova HQ, which had fallen victim to the Annihilation Wave. Their triumph was short-lived, as they found themselves pursued by the relentless Bacchian clan. In a surprising turn of events, Star-Lord managed to strike a deal with Eve Bacchian, convincing her to purchase the Space Stone in exchange for 3 coveted Nova Stars. Sounds like I'm playing Mario Party. Discovering that their goals were aligned, both parties seeking to rid the universe of the Annihilation Wave as well, the Bacchians allowed Star-Lord and Gamora to join their quest in search of the remaining stones. During their perilous journey, a treacherous betrayal unfolded when their supposed ally Thanos seized the Infinity Stones that they had acquired, and then in the ensuing chaos, a colossal insectoid threat was unleashed, which is pretty freaking nuts and honestly kind of epic. Why would you trust Thanos though? I guess it's an alternate universe, so oh well. Halfway through into number 5, Super Mario. Now this one is kind of a joke, yes, but since Mario was voiced by Chris Pratt in the Super Mario Bros. Movie, technically that makes Mario a Star-Lord variant, right? I mean, a load of Mario games also revolve around stars or include them as some form of currency or whatever the case may be. Super Mario Galaxy revolved around stars quite literally. I mean, like, it was in space. Galaxy kinda needs stars in a galaxy. Luna, who's a character in the series, is a star. Rosalina has the star wand. Mario's main goal in Mario Party is to collect stars, which are highly coveted. He's a Lord of Stars, and given that he's voiced by Chris Pratt, and when in contact with a superstar, Mario gains invulnerability and what is basically celestial adjacent powers, or some would say celestial descendant powers. Yeah, I'm gonna count Super Mario as a Star-Lord variant, okay? And if you want to get mad at me for it, go right ahead. I'm sure plenty of you want to give me a piece of your mind already anyway. In it for Cyborg. After the events on Aveline 4, where Star-Lord's actions inadvertently caused the loss of 350,000 lives while saving millions of others, he couldn't escape the weight of the collateral damage that he had caused. Faced with the gravity of his actions, he made the difficult decision to turn himself in, along with the Fallen One, to the Nova Corps for judgment. The public's opinion of Quill was divided, but he took responsibility for the tragedy. Subsequently, both Star-Lord and the Fallen One had found themselves imprisoned on the notorious intergalactic penitentiary known as the Kiln. It was during this time of confinement that Peter made a significant choice. He opted to undergo his first cybernetic implant, a symbolic gesture of distancing himself from his own humanity, because I mean that's what put him in there in the first place, really. While incarcerated, Peter formed an alliance with Chalk, Gladiator, and Thanos, fearing the immense power of the enigmatic figure known as the Maker. They shared crucial information about her background with Thanos and sought his aid, but the Mad Titan ultimately walked away. But still, he became a cyborg, and that's pretty dope, because, you know, part robot people are awesome, a la Power Rangers Red Ranger. You know, if you know, you know. Getting close to the end in number 3, Old Man Quill. Prior to Red Skull's rise to power and the downfall of the United States, Star-Lord assumed the role of Emperor within the Spartax Empire. During his time, he entered into a union with Lyssa, who gave birth to their 2 children, Meredith and Jason. Though his responsibilities as Emperor prevented him from joining the Guardians on a critical mission that led to Groot's demise, the decision strained his relationship with the rest of the team. In the aftermath of the rebellion and the subsequent years as Emperor, Star-Lord remained unaware of the events unfolding on Earth. However, everything changed when the colossal Church of Truth launched a brutal assault on his planet, resulting in the tragic loss of his family. So, consumed by grief and despair, Quill lived in seclusion for years, cutting off from the Guardians and the wider universe. Then, a message arrived from the dying Guardians, revealing that Star-Lord represented the last hope to defeat the Church. And I mean, like, the one that had attacked his planet, not, like, Cavalry Baptist, you know. But ultimately, in at number 2, Age of Ultron. Star-Lord of Earth 26111 is a valiant member of the Defenders who was enlisted by Tony Stark to safeguard the world from the relentless menace posed by Morgan Le Fay. Alongside his fellow Defenders, he engaged in a fierce battle with Wolverine and the Invisible Woman from an alternate reality, mistakenly believing them to be Skrull imposters. As Tony Stark interrogated the displaced visitors, tragedy struck when Morgan Le Fay launched a devastating assault on New York City. Star-Lord and his fellow Defenders valiantly valiantly confronted the sorceress and her formidable forces. However, their heroic efforts came to a tragic end when Morgan Le Fay orchestrated the cataclysmic nuclear explosion caused by colliding two of Stark's helicarriers. So I mean, yeah, any old man story you know is gonna be messed up. Old Man Logan, Maestro, Spider-Man Reign. And finally, in at number 1, Will Stronghold. That's right, I found a way to shoehorn Sky High into this list, okay? Will Stronghold is the main protagonist and central character of the Disney Channel original movie Sky High. As the offspring of two esteemed superheroes, the Commander and Jetstream, Will carries the weight of their legacy on his shoulders. Inheriting his father's incredible strength and his mother's ability to soar through the skies, Will proved to be quite the formidable student at Sky High. But he doesn't start off with powers. So he's the only kid at a school full of the children of superheroes and villains alike to not have any superpowers, despite having two superhero parents who are literally the most famous people on the planet. But over time, Will sheds his shyness and timidness, and he grows more confident and actually gains his powers. Through his journey, he gains popularity as well, but also earns the respect and admiration of his fellow students and even teachers. Will's evolution allows him to stand as a true hero, carving his own path and giving his friends hope, who, by the way, one of them is Danielle Panabaker, who plays Killer Frost on The Flash, but she was playing Poison Ivy in this movie. But the reason I have Will on this list is because the legacy that he's trying to uphold is that of the Commander, played by Kurt Russell, who also played Ego, meaning that within the Marvel multiverse, Will Stronghold is a variant of Star-Lord. You're welcome. I had to do it, okay? I had to. It's true. Will Stronghold is Star-Lord confirmed.
Kicking off the list at number 10 is Spider-Man Punisher. Yes, I am sort of cheating for this one. On Earth 71928, location of the What If Peter Parker Became the Punisher story, Peter Parker, well, becomes the Punisher. It's in the title. On the night Uncle Ben's life was drawn to a close, instead of following the classic story, Peter caught and dispatched the killer using the same weapon that took his uncle's life. From that moment, Peter tried to avoid going full murderous Punisher at first, but having taken the first step and knowing how much more permanent of a solution it is to just take them out, he went full force into that lifestyle. He carried the iron that took Uncle Ben's life, as well as a large assortment of other weaponry, including his web shooters with multiple different types of ammunition that allowed him to take down the Sinister Six with ease, and he was even able to save Gwen Stacy. So technically, this Punisher was not only better than Punisher, but also a more effective crime fighter than Spider-Man himself, in a way. Number 9, Punisher 2099. In the far-flung future of the year 2099, Frank Castle was long gone. So, Jake Gallows took up the fight. Jake was an officer of the Public Eye Police Force. In an attack ordered by Kron Stone, the Venom of 2099, Jake lost his mother, brother, and sister-in-law, while also being gravely injured himself. Being inspired by the war journals of Frank Castle, after his recovery, Jake became the new Punisher, taking up the crusade on crime after getting his revenge on Venom. Jake specifically sought out justice for the poor, using his 2099 technology alongside modern and futuristic weaponry to operate as a vigilante before serving as Victor Von Doom's Minister of Punishment. You'll see him most recently in the recent Savage Avengers comics, but no spoilers, so sorry. Number 8, Robin King. Probably the most depraved, psychotic, and disturbing of the Batman Who Laughs posse would have to be the Robin King. Instead of becoming Batman, this young Bruce Wayne lost his parents just like every other, only it was by his own hand. This Bruce was depraved basically from birth, so much so that it even scared his version of Alfred Pennyworth, who still continued to protect the young Wayne. After the passing of Joe Chill and Bruce's parents, the young fella found that he felt mainly cheer from all that altercation. He was inspired by a robin singing and how the bird is known for taking over the nests of other birds. Under that ideology, he began to put together an arsenal and a utility belt, which he would then use to take out police officer James Gordon and Alfred once they were able to prove that Bruce was responsible for the passing of his own parents. Robin King then stuffed the Flash's mom inside Barry's ring, he took out the Arcane family and obtained the Rot, he somehow managed to take out Swamp Thing, and he got away with it all because everyone thought he was just some kid. This guy even obtained and then modified the anti-life equation, a manhunt consisting of Adam Strange, Balloon Buster, Enemy Ace, Firestorm, Hawkgirl, and Hawkman all fell to this Robin King before he was finally recruited by the Batman Who Laughs, and he even posed some resistance to that guy. All this from an untrained Bruce Wayne. It's too much. Number 7. Dawnbreaker. Of all the Dark Knights recently introduced in Dark Knight's Metal, aside from their leader, the Dawnbreaker stands among the others as one of the most creative and possibly terrifying combinations. This blending of Bruce Wayne with Green Lantern, while based on two heroes, is definitely not a good guy. After Bruce Wayne's tragic loss of his parents, the Green Lantern ring comes to him and grants him the powers of a Green Lantern, right there in the alley. Now, if you know Batman, you'll know that he has likely one of the strongest wills on Earth, even though that's not really talked about. So strong, in fact, that it allows him to overpower the programming of the Green Lantern ring and do things that Green Lanterns are not supposed to do, like using his monstrous hard-light constructs to take down criminals permanently, or like taking out the whole Green Lantern Corps and the Guardians of the Universe. Stuff like that. He is a crazy powerful version of Batman, and I think it would be really cool if someone could put him on the big screen, in a sort of superhero horror movie, or something like that. Number 6. The Drowned. Bryce Wayne was the Batwoman of the Dark Multiverse Earth 11, and this vigilante had a romantic relationship with a certain Sylvester Kyle. When Kyle lost his life to rogue metahumans, it flicked a switch inside of Bryce, and she decided to systematically take down every single metahuman she could find. The craziest thing is that she did just that, wiping out every single metahuman who walked on land. But Bryce didn't think about the metahumans of the sea. Just 18 months after taking out the last land-based metahuman, Aquaman and the Atlanteans revealed themselves and returned to the surface from years of self-imposed exile. While they came in peace, Bryce had such a mistrust of anyone, especially these Atlanteans that were obviously also metahumans. When peace talks devolved to an all-out war, Bryce modified her human form with biochemical augmentations, like the ability to control water, breathing underwater, healing faster, and bolstering her muscular, skeletal, and bodily tissue density. She gave herself a kind of dark hydrokinesis which could corrupt those fighting against her into ravenous sea beasts under her command, and designed her own army of hybridized sea creatures called Dead Water, all of which was bolstered up by the trident that she pried from the cold hands of a completely decimated Aquawoman. She then drowned the world, and it was then that she was contacted by the Batman Who Laughs. Number 5. Cyborg Batman. Yes, there is a Batman-Cyborg hybrid who is part of the Batman Who Laughs Dark Knights, and yes, he is terrifyingly awesome. Murder Machine first appears in Dark Days the Casting in the Dark Multiverse Earth -44. In this world, this evil Batman cyborg comes about after the passing of Alfred Pennyworth in the Batcave by a group of Batman's villains. As Bruce Wayne's father figure and closest friend, Bruce took this loss hard, and he blamed himself. He asked Cyborg to make an Alfred Cyborg AI called Alfred Protocol in order to help Bruce like Alfred used to do. Unfortunately, like most AI in fiction, it went kinda mad with its directive of protecting Batman. It spread like a virus, took down all of the villains and then all of the heroes, and even took over Batman's own body since it didn't believe that he could protect himself well enough. And Batman just didn't want to be separated from Alfred, so he was totally cool with it. Number 4. Devastator. On alternate Earth -1, Batman and Superman were pals and everything was dandy. Until one day Superman changed and rampaged, turning on humanity. Superman took out almost everyone, and Batman tried his best to help bring his friend back. But once Superman took out Lois Lane and then cut off Batman's arm, there was really no going back from that point. Batman decided to inject himself with the Doomsday virus, turning him into the Devastator, powering him up enough to take out Superman but also making him lose all sympathy. He still retains all the knowledge of Bruce Wayne plus the fighting skill, and he acts as the muscle for the Dark Knights. Truly a monstrous and terrifying Batman. Number 3. Eradicator Lois. For this point, we are going back in time to the infamous death of Superman. When Superman fell in the fight between himself and Doomsday, it didn't hit anyone as hard as it hit Lois Lane. Well, in the Dark Multiverse, something curious happened. After some time passed and Lois saw the effects of a Superman-less world, she eventually traveled to the Fortress of Solitude to return Superman's cape. What she never expected was for the Kryptonian Eradicator to show up. This defender of Krypton is the reason that Superman does eventually come back. back, placing Clark in the Kryptonian life matrix that was supposed to revive Superman. In this story though, it takes longer than expected, and so, assuming that the revival was a failure, the Eradicator instead places the powers of Superman into the body of Lois Lane. Unfortunately, this is the dark multiverse though, and so this newly superpowered Lois Lane throws almost all caution to the wayside and uses her powers recklessly, saving the day, sure, but with no regard for collateral damage or repercussions. She ends wars, feeds the hungry, destroys the military-industrial complex, all that good stuff, but she also wipes out countless lives, including Batman's, and she's even responsible for the fall of Superman again when he does finally return. The whole story is pretty tragic, but that also makes it one of the best ones to come out of the dark multiverse, in my opinion. Number 2, The Batman Who Laughs. The Batman Who Laughs is arguably one of the most dangerous versions of Batman who has ever lived, other than Batman himself. If you don't know yet, he is a dark multiverse version of Batman who took down the Joker, but inadvertently infected himself with a strain of Joker toxin. The resulting transformation turns this version of Bruce Wayne into an amalgamation of Joker and Batman. All the intelligence and resourcefulness and martial skill of Batman mixed with the buck-wild, psychotic, murderous mind of the Joker. He is pure chaos and destruction, and he lays waste to his own Bat family and the whole Justice League. He has a pack of Jokerized Robins, and he is the leader of the Dark Knights. He is also a lieutenant of the Dark God Barbados, and he convinced Perpetua, the original creator of the multiverse, to choose him as her lieutenant, eventually acquiring cosmic power and becoming an even bigger threat than even Perpetua herself. And finally, in at number 1, it's Saint Batman. As some of you may know, when Bane broke the back of Bruce Wayne in the Batman Nightfall storyline, Bruce was briefly replaced as the Dark Knight in favor of John Paul Valley, otherwise known as the somewhat extreme crime fighter Azrael. Eventually, the status quo was returned and Bruce took the mantle of Batman back, but as you know, in the dark multiverse, everything can and will happen, and so of course, we see the dark outcome of what would happen if Bruce never got to take back his cowl. In the dark multiverse version of Batman Nightfall, John Paul Valley doesn't return the mantle, and instead, believing himself to be the best successor to the Batman name, he defeats Bruce Wayne and the entire Bat family. Over the next 30 years, John Paul, now going by Saint Batman, has destroyed and rebuilt the city of Gotham. He stripped Bruce of his arms and legs and keeps Bruce on life support, just trying to get Bruce to admit that John Paul was the right choice for the role of Batman. Unfortunately, Saint Batman had crossed the wrong people, and he suffered a pretty brutal defeat at the hands of Lady Shiva, the son of Bane, and a restored cyborg Batman.
Number 10. What if Venom had possessed the Punisher? A great question. Well, as you can imagine, basically what would have happened is a lot of death. In issue number 44 of What If, we examine the answer to this question and see that Frank Castle ends up going on a killing spree as a result of joining with the symbiote. However, in the end, Frank realizes that Venom is attempting to fully possess him and resists, warning the symbiote that if not given back full control over his own body and his own actions, he will be forced to destroy the symbiote by taking his own life. This makes Venom reconsider its position, and Punisher is given back control over his body, with the two of them teaming up to become the new Punisher. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us by clicking that like button? Number 9. Age of Apocalypse. While it's never explicitly stated who the host is, the Venom of the Age of Apocalypse is interesting in terms of their appearance. This version of the symbiote takes a host that appears to resemble Captain America. They have a similar or the same shield as Cap and appear to be wearing a Captain America costume. I don't actually think Captain America makes an appearance in the AOA reality explicitly, so it seems more than likely that this is actually meant to be him, because I don't think we see him anywhere else, despite it being unconfirmed. If true, I like how Venom mainly changes the appearance of Cap's face and his hands, and that's really about it.
Number 8. Ultimate Spider-Ham. Spider-Ham is one of the most popular alternate versions of Spider-Man out there, but he is just an alternate version of Peter Parker. Luckily for us, his popularity coupled with the popularity of Miles Morales gave us Miles Morhames. Yes, that is his name, and he is the ultimate spider pig. As is the case in seemingly all universes, Miles' uncle was secretly a masked criminal known in this universe as the Fowler. One of the items Fowler had stolen turned out to be a radioactive spider, which is the one that bit Miles, granting him his spider abilities. Following the passing of the original Spider-Ham when he defeated the Green Gobbler once and for all, Miles stepped up to take his mantle in order to become the ultimate Spider-Ham. The world that Miles hailed from, Earth 14094, ended up actually being destroyed by Dr. Doom after the world was saved from Galactopus, who, he's not an octopus, but get this, Galactus is a platypus. I mean, come on. I feel like I'm way too excited about this. After the destruction of his reality, Miles traveled the multiverse, warning other universes of how to protect themselves against calamity until he arrived on Earth 1610, where he stayed. Number 7. Hulk. I wasn't done with the What If Miles Morales stories yet. I can't just give you guys one of those awesome Miles Moraleses. I can give you all the Miles Moraleses. Yeah, Miles Morales in this issue is very much like his normal self, until the day that Uncle Aaron made a deal with Emil Blonsky. Aaron found himself in possession of a suspicious briefcase. Noticing a spider on said briefcase, Miles attempted to kill it, but instead accidentally knocked over the briefcase, which caused him to step on a nuclear cartridge, exposing himself to gamma radiation, and well, he got Hulkified in the middle of the night. Miles tries to keep his transformations on the down low and under control, enlisting the help of his friend Genki, who didn't believe him until Miles stepped on a Lego, which, as we all should know, causes a rage and turned him into the Hulk. Eventually, Miles spied on his uncle as the Prowler as he was dealing with Emil, which is when his uncle made an attempt at Emil's life. Now, during the kerfuffle, another briefcase was dropped and Uncle Aaron also found himself being exposed to gamma radiation, but this time he was turned into the Abomination. Number 6. Into the Spider-Verse. Yes, of course we have to talk about the version of Miles Morales appearing in the awesome animated Spider-Verse movies. Voiced by actor Shameik Moore, this version of Miles Morales brought the character to a very large audience with an origin story that differed slightly from his original counterpart, but it also still retains enough elements of that original story, which I believe is part of the reason his universe designation is Earth 1610B instead of having its own separate reality number. The best part of this Miles Morales though is when the Spider-Verse opens up and he gets to interact with the various other Spider-Men and women across the multiverse. The first movie was an absolute hit. It had a dope soundtrack, an amazing animation style with a superb cast, hilarious writing, and a heap of heartfelt moments. Now, I have yet to see the sequel, but I am super excited to see where this Miles Morales goes with his story. Number 5. Mayor. This version of Miles Morales comes at us from the series known as The End, which basically chronicles the final stories of various different heroes in the Marvel landscape. Some of the most famous of these stories have been the Hulk The End and Deadpool The End. But for Miles Morales, his possible alternate future takes place decades from now in a ravaged place that was once New York City. Most places on Earth had been ravaged by monsters known as the Germs, with Brooklyn being one of the few places that had been saved and protected by this massive shield. Side note, I like how germs are the monsters here. Like, it's kind of like all those things you learn about as kids when germs were like little monsters, but now they're actual monsters. Kind of hilarious, kind of cool. I don't know. But after becoming Spider-Man and letting the world know his identity, Miles was chosen as mayor of Brooklyn and as its protector. He faced off against a Captain America wannabe known as Captain Last and his One America army of raiders. After Captain Last eventually merges with a germ in order to attack Brooklyn, Miles sacrifices his life to bring the Captain down and save the lives of everyone in Brooklyn. Good job. Way to go. Number 4. Wolverine. Yep, it's another Miles Morales what if, and I don't know why Wolverine is the last person I expected to see in this series, but I'm extremely okay with it. Miles Morales in this world is instead a mutant with the same abilities as Wolverine. When he is younger, Miles is stolen away alongside other children by Weapon X, who turn him into the adamantium skeleton superweapon just like the regular Wolverine. Now fast forward a few years, and now in this world, Sentinels are being used to hunt down mutants by S.H.I.E.L.D. And after Miles takes out like 3 of them, S.H.I.E.L.D. sends this super cool looking warrior wielding an adamantium katana to take Miles out. This awesome SHIELD warrior turns out to be Miles' father, and once he discovers this Wolverine mutant is his own son, he instead turns on SHIELD. Which is when they send in Miles' uncle Aaron, who seems to be this world's version of Sabretooth. Miles' father defends his son to his dying breath until Miles jumps in to beat Sabretooth to a pulp and almost ends him before his father convinces him not to and to instead be a hero. It all wraps up with the X-Men showing up to recruit Miles, but led by Professor X, who is Genki Lee. It's just wild. It's so cool. Number 3, Vision Miles. No, this is not a highly advanced android version of Miles Morales. It is, in fact, the Miles Morales who exists in a possible future shown to us in a vision from the Inhuman precog known as Ulysses Kane. The reason I want to talk about this seemingly insignificant version of Miles Morales who only appeared in a vision is because this Miles was able to take the life of Captain America. Now obviously Captain America is not an indestructible guy. He's not the most powerful hero and he could probably be taken out by any number of heroes, but the respect that Captain America carries and the influence he has makes him one of those characters that you simply do not see being taken out very often. So, to see it happen here in Civil War II at the hands of Miles Morales on the steps of the ruined United States Capitol building in the reality of Earth 61115 is one hell of a shocking image. I want to know what happens after Miles does this, but we won't know until a writer decides to take the initiative to put out a story set in this alternate crazy reality. Number 2, the Falcon. Temporary reality number 852 gave us a Miles whose history is similar to his Earth 1610 counterparts, only he never gained powers from a genetically engineered spider. Instead, this Miles' favorite heroes were the totally underrated Nighthawk and his sidekick and partner, the Falcon. Unfortunately, like how Spider-Man lost his life to the Goblin in the Ultimate reality, in this one, it's the Falcon that ultimately croaked at the hands of the Goblin. This devastated Miles, and he took it as his opportunity to take the reins. Creating a costume similar to the Falcon's using his electrical engineering skills, Miles aided Nighthawk as he was battling the villains Scorpion and Scorpia, but Nighthawk was not too receptive to this pretender coming in and trying to replace his old partner. Wanting to prove to Nighthawk that he could be a hero, Miles created the Young Squadron with Kid Spectrum and Girl Power. While Miles and the Young Squadron were fighting the Wrecking Crew, Miles was stolen away by the Goblin's partner Deadpool, who was attempting to make sure the Falcon Mantle never came back. Deadpool was eventually defeated by the other members of the Young Squadron, and after handing Deadpool over to Nighthawk, Miles and the Young Squadron decided to be a better team than the other heroes of their reality. And finally, in at number 1, Captain America. Yes, we are rounding off today's list with the very first of the What If Miles Morales stories, which in my opinion is one of the best. In the very first issue, Miles' dad is part of the new super soldier program inspired by the original that created Captain America. Uncle Aaron, who always plays a large part in Miles' life, steals the super soldier serum and keeps it in his fridge, which is where Miles finds it looking for a drink. It turns out Miles is actually a perfect match for the serum, and he becomes the new Captain America. It's super cool because not only is Miles the new Cap, but Tiana Toombs becomes the Falcon and Sam Wilson becomes the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D. with the eye patch and everything. Uncle Aaron becomes Prowler after being attacked by Black Widow, and Lonnie Lincoln is the Grey Skull, which is this reality's Red Skull. Miles here seems to be just as powerful as the normal Captain America, if not a little younger and by extension, a little bit more naive.
Number 10, Howlett. Howlett is another one of my favorite Wolverine alternates. He hails from Earth 12025, known for being his own home universe. That's how popular he is. That's how we know what that universe is, just based on this one character. He was created by Greg Pak and Mike McCone, and made his first appearance in 2004's Astonishing X-Men in issue number 44. In this reality, James Howlett becomes the Governor General of Canada, serving both the Queen of England and Canada. He often teams up with the Hercules of this reality, and the two even have a romantic relationship together. Tragically, their romance initially had to be kept a secret because both of the people they served, the Queen and Zeus in Hercules' case, banned them from being in a relationship together, each for their own different reasons, and even when they did reveal their love, there was hell to pay.
In at 9, Old Man Logan. 50 years later, Logan lives with his wife Maureen, his son Scotty, and his daughter Jade on a plot of land in Sacramento of what used to be California, but is now a part of Hulkland, and no, that's not an amusement park. He requires money to pay his rent to his landlords for his territory, his landlords being the descendants of Bruce Banner, you know, the Hulk gang, who are the product of just a messed up procreation situation. I don't think I can say the actual words on YouTube, but you get what I'm saying. He refuses to sell his children's toys to pay for rent, so Logan is shown as just, you know, a broken man who refuses to fight, even though, you know, he definitely could. He's living peacefully, but then when he realizes he's unable to pay, that's when the Hulk gang will not accept a plea deal to pay double next month. So yeah, considering how they're inappropriately and without permissionly conceived children of Hulk and She-Hulk, which is Bruce's cousin, you know that this isn't going to go well. They confront him on his lack of payment, violently beat him, and then just, oh god, it's such a messed up story. Logan entertains visions of gutting the eldest Hulk brother Otis as he takes the beating, but yeah, the Hulk gang later kills his family, so Logan kills all the Hulk gang. It's a messed up version, but pretty iconic, but still, yikes. What the hell, Marvel? God, don't put this in the MCU. Thank God this wasn't a what if episode. Jeez. In at 8, Capitalist Couriers. First appearing in Flash Volume 2 number 6 in 1987, the group originally known as the Red Trinity was created by Russian scientist Pyotr Orlov when he and his partner attempted to recreate Flash's super speed abilities after watching a daring rescue. The second group of test subjects were successful and were renamed the Red Trinity. The group included Anatoly, Bebek, and Kasofia, and they became agents for the Soviet military. But here's where things get weird. When the third Flash came to enlist the help of Dr. Orlov in the issue of saving Jerry McGee's life, the Red Trinity chose to follow Orlov to America. While there, they became infatuated with American culture and decided to stay there, opening a business as a team of super speed messengers called Capitalist Courier Services Inc. Kasofia has since died. He was running up the side of a building to make a delivery when his speed vanished for some reason and he fell to his death. That was thanks to Savitar's reappearance, but these Russian speedsters literally made Amazon Super Prime. Okay, that's great. That's so good. That's hilarious. That's what I would do with my powers if I got super speed. And at 7, Leah Nelson. Leah Nelson from Earth 9 is a very different version of the Flash, to say the least, but on her Earth, Leah is the second most recognized person on the planet. She was an instant celebrity since her parents were the first people to visit Jupiter, and her mother was a bit of a hero and her father was a Nightwing agent, even if he wasn't very good at his job. Leah is a being of light, and once able to control her power, she took on the moniker of the Flash. Since she is a being of light, she's able to travel at the speed of light, making her a speedster without a connection to the Speed Force, which I admit may frustrate some of you with her being on this list, but I don't know, I thought it was interesting, okay, and certainly an interesting version of the Flash. Leah also had a whole host of powers, including superhuman speed, metamorphosis, where she uses light to create solid holograms to alter her appearance, energy construct creation, allowing her to make solid objects out of light like a Green Lantern, energy projection, which is just beams of energy, and energy absorption. And at 6, Savitar. The Savitar from the comics is certainly another interesting character. First appearing in Flash Volume 2 number 108 in 1995, the man whose name is still unknown who became Savitar was a Cold War test pilot. As he reached top speed in a test flight for a supersonic fighter plane, the plane was struck by lightning and went down in hostile territory. Once he learned about his speed though, he became obsessed with it and craved more, like any good villain does. He named himself after the Hindu god of motion and spent years studying, learning new powers that no other speedsters had mastered. He can protect himself in what is in essence a Speed Force shield field, can give speed to objects and other people, and heal injuries instantaneously instead of just way faster. As Savitar's obsession grew, so did his followers, and he became the leader of basically his own self-worshipping cult, and he desired even more after that. So he went after the only speedster around at the time, Johnny Quick. The fight ended up causing Max Mercury to show up and led him into the speed field where Savitar bounced off, but he did at some point return and instead wanted to eliminate his competition, including the Flash, Impulse, and especially Max. But he ended up dying in Flash Volume 2 number 111 from 1996. Halfway through into number 5, Hot Pursuit. What is the Flash known for? Exactly, running really fast. That's his whole thing. Running so fast that he can beat instantaneous teleportation that he has in the comics. So, what's the deal with Hot Pursuit? First introduced in the Flash Volume Volume 3, Number 6. Hot Pursuit is a version of Barry Allen from another universe who came to warn his counterpart about an impending disaster, which ends up being Flashpoint. But the difference here is that this Flash doesn't run. Instead, he has a Speed Force powered motorcycle called the Cosmic Motorcycle. Yeah, his cowl is also a motorcycle helmet, so at least he's being safe about it. And his suit is black and white instead of, red. Unfortunately, Hot Pursuit dies 6 issues after he was introduced in Flash Volume 3, Number 12 as a part of the Road to Flashpoint event, but the moniker Hot Pursuit would later be adopted by Patty Spivot as she stole his gear from the Central City Police Department. In it 4, No Rules to Follow. In an Elseworlds story where metahumans are hated, basically just mutants in the Marvel Universe, 10 individuals with powers band together to try to get the world to trust them by doing good deeds. These people, who on another Earth would be known as the Flash, Shark, Fire, Dr. Light, Polaris, Power Girl, Poison Ivy, Tasmanian Devil, Changeling, and Metamorpho, unfortunately don't accomplish their goal, since their attempts to contain a nuclear meltdown just make everything worse. After this disaster, metahumans go into hiding, and a few metas, Flash included, began raiding military bases that had previously attacked them. But after a battle with the Control Squad, which was a group of high-tech operatives that the Wayne Foundation had created to fight metahumans, caused an even further split, resulting in Ivy, Changeling, and Metamorpho all hating the military even more. But when Superman showed himself, everyone eventually kind of accepted it. Then Batman, or I guess Wayne, ended up creating the version of the Justice League that was just known as the Justice League. But again, this is a very interesting Flash. It's basically the Flash cosplaying Juggernaut or Juggernaut cosplaying Flash, whichever one you want to pick. In at 3, Speed Demon. Remember how I love to mention the Amalgam universe that combines the DC and Marvel characters, and then I also mentioned Iron Lantern and no one believed that it was a thing? Yeah, it was. It's a combination of Hal Jordan and Tony Stark. But today, I'm presenting to you Speed Demon, a combination of Barry Allen and Johnny Blaze, aka Blaze Allen. He was a circus daredevil who sold his soul to become the first Speed Demon. The demon component of this character, Etrigan, was also formerly Jay Garrick before the Night Spectre stole Jay's soul. The Night Spectre approached Blaze and asked him to serve him in his attempts to collect souls of the most pure and most corrupt. Blaze Allen refused to do so, so to persuade him, at his wedding night, Night Spectre stole Iris's soul. Blaze then accepted the bond, hoping to get Iris back, or at least to ensure her safety. Speed Demon also speaks only in rhymes, but they're a speedster with a flaming skull head that can also breathe hellfire, okay? It's pretty freaking dope. Wally West, also, who is an amalgam of Wally West and Danny Ketch, was the next Speed Demon after that who accepted the power in order to help his uncle get Iris's soul back. But ultimately, in at number 2, Wizard. This version of the Flash actually comes from the Marvel Universe, believe it or not. And while yes, speedsters are like a superhero archetype, this one is like a deliberate reference to the Flash from an unofficial Justice League versus Avengers crossover fight in the Marvel Universe. The Wizard is a member of Squadron Supreme, which comes from a parallel dimension of the Marvel multiverse. Stanley Stewart is his name, and while running late one night, he ran through a strange fog. Over the next few weeks, he gained the ability to run faster than anyone else, which I didn't know Fog had the ability to do, but hey, it's comics. The original goal of Squadron, which Wizard was a founding member of, was to create a utopia, which they would have accomplished. They turned much of the world into a paradise within the first year, but stopped when a former member, known as Nighthawk, convinced them that it was in essence a dictatorship. Shortly after the project ended, multiple members of the team got stranded in the main Marvel universe, but did end up making it home. And finally, in at number 1, The Crash. This is like my favorite alternate version of the Flash. Coming from Earth C-, the Crash is the fastest animal alive, and a member of the JLA, or the Just a Lotta Animals group, which is this world's Justice League. On Earth C-, everyone is some form of animal, and it's probably the most ridiculous thing that you could ever read. While his name is unknown, the Crash is this universe's Flash, and not only that, he's a turtle, okay? In a classic tortoise in the hare scenario, slow and steady wins the race to get super speed and a connection to the Speed Force, I guess. And I'm not even kidding. He fights against characters with names like Weather Weasel instead of Weather Wizard, and that's hilarious. I love it so much. He was first introduced in Captain Carrot and his amazing Zoo Crew number 14, which is even better, which features superheroes like Wonder Rabbit, Aquaduck, and Bat Mouse. Not a bat Man Bat, which is kind of confusing. Oh, and the Green Lambkin instead of the Green Lantern. But again, there's also Green Sparrow.
Coming in at number 10 is Earth 616. Most fans of Miles Morales know this already, but for those who aren't aware, the Miles Morales that has become the second Spider-Man and who all the alternate Miles are based on is actually not native to the main Marvel universe. That Miles actually comes from Marvel's Ultimate Universe, the Earth 1610 universe. So then, that kind of begs the question of who and where the heck is the main continuity Miles Morales? Well, he's there, but he is much different. Miles Morales was a member of the Rigoletto crime family who ended up with a 3-year sentence in Rikers Island to cover for his cousin, which got him the respect of the family and of Wilson Fisk, who Miles saved in prison. Miles and Fisk opened a restaurant together after they both got out, and when Wilson took over the crime family, he let Miles go and live a happy life with his wife. Unfortunately though, when his wife passed away, Miles went to find the same woman in an alternate universe, which brought him into conflict with Peter Parker and the main Miles Morales Spider-Man, and eventually brought him to Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe, where he found his love again. Now when he returned to Earth 616, Miles had outfitted himself with an Ant-Man suit, Iron Man repulsors, and a Captain America looking shield, and he brought some friends in order to face his younger Miles counterpart and try and run the streets of New York once again. Number 9. Thor. Last year, in 2022, in case you were watching this from the future, we got a whole series of What If comics centered specifically around the character of Miles Morales, and each issue of that comic gave us a different Miles who had taken after a different hero. For the 4th issue of this series, the World Tree of Yggdrasil had found itself in Brooklyn, creating a version of Brooklyn that was Asgardified, or an Asgard that has been Brooklynified. I guess, you pick. In case you haven't guessed, the Miles Morales of temporary reality number 951 has indeed become Thor Odin's son. All the other classic pillars of the Thor mythos are here too, substituted with Miles' mom and dad for Frigga and Odin, his friends substituting as the Warriors 3, and of course his uncle Aaron as the trickster god Loki, who tricks Thor Odin's son Morales into stealing the skull of the frost giant Laufey in order to impress his pops. If you check this one out, please let me know what you think of all the rhyming and rapping this version of Miles tries to do, and if it made you cringe like it made me cringe, because it really did make me cringe like quite a lot. Why did they do that? I don't know. Number 8, the Ultimate Hulk. Yes, the Ultimate Universe's version of the Hulk is similar to the regular Hulk, but his personality? No, it's pretty whack. Bruce Banner, no matter where you find him, is an emotionally scarred dude. It's a part of why he is the way that he is, but the Ultimate Bruce Banner? He's selfish, self-absorbed, and kinda straight just creepy. He was so desperate to be noticed and recognized that he willingly injected himself with an experimental version of a new super soldier formula, turning him into a monstrous version of the Hulk. Yes, there was no gamma bomb here, not at first. This Hulk had little to no regard for human life and collateral damage. He even enjoyed to feast on others from time to time. He was completely nuts is what I'm telling you. Ultimate Hulk would join up with Maker, Quicksilver, Kang, and a mind-controlled Human Torch to make up the team known as the Dark Ultimates. Yeah, it's safe to say the Hulk here was a villain more than anything else, but he would eventually align himself to be a bit better, but not by much. Number 7, the Breaker of Worlds. The Breaker of Worlds Hulk first appeared in a kind of side story within the Immortal Hulk story. It was more like a worst case scenario kind of thing. In an alternate timeline, the Immortal Hulk becomes possessed by the One Below All, who went rampaging until the end of time, and the end of this iteration of the multiverse. He has destroyed everything. Literally everything. He has defeated Franklin Richards, Galactus, all the cosmic entities, and he's shattered planets and crushed stars with his bare hands. The story itself follows an alien that had explored out trying to find out if anything was left in the universe, and there wasn't. This alien is living in the 9th cosmos, meaning the 9th version of the multiverse after the Immortal Hulk / the One Below All destroyed the last version. This new 9th multiverse is in tatters. The One Below All Hulk has consumed the souls of every being he has destroyed, bolstering up his own power enough so that he is a planet-sized Hulk, and he just flies around like a living curse, ending all things in existence until there is nothing left ever. Luckily though, the alien sent a warning far into the past to the present time, and the Breaker of Worlds won't actually happen, but it is what happens when the one below all wins, and it's not good. Number 6, Space Punisher Hulk. This version of the Hulk, appearing in the really awesome Space Punisher story, at least I think it's awesome, other people don't agree, is a 4-armed, 30-foot tall, murderous monstrosity. He completely took out the Fantastic Four. He bit Sabretooth in half, took off Deadpool's head, and threw him out into space, and he completely decimated a group of 6 Watchers, as in the race that Uatu the Watcher is a part of. If you don't know, the Watchers are sort of on par in power to Galactus, so yes, this is pretty impressive. Another fun fact about this future space version of the Hulk is that the Hulk is more like an exoskeleton with Bruce Banner contained within the Hulk's chest. But they are still separate entities, allowing the Space Punisher to end the life of Bruce Banner, which in turn allows the Hulk to just jump off into space free and leaving everyone alone. It's intense, it's really weird, it's extremely brutal as you'd expect from a Punisher story, and we kinda love it. Number 5, Weapon H. What do you get when you combine Wolverine and the Hulk? No, it's not a joke, you get an absolute monster of a character. In Totally Awesome Hulk number 21, we're introduced to Clayton Cortez, a former Marine who was subjected to Weapon X's Batch H division, which primarily tried to create Hulk-Wolverine hybrid cyborgs. And you're right, that does sound absolutely awesome. Clayton himself, though, became H-Alpha. He has an adamantium skeleton, a healing factor, and claws just like Wolverine. But add on to that the ability to change from human form to his Hulk-like form that gives him near limitless super strength and other Hulk abilities, and that is one scary powerful guy. He is an absolute beast, and his creator says he can defeat nearly everyone on the planet, which I honestly kinda believe. Now, let's just hope he gets some actual viewership and enough popularity to stand as his own character. Number 4, the Maestro. Okay, imagine a version of the Hulk with twice his strength who retains the intelligence of Bruce Banner. Now take that Hulk and make him a ruthless, tyrannical ruler, and you get Maestro. Maestro is a possible future version of the Hulk who took out literally all the other heroes and villains and names himself Emperor over the whole world. Our Hulk first comes into contact with Maestro when Rick Jones's daughter takes him to the future to fight his evil future self. But this Maestro guy, he ain't playing around, okay? In their very first fight, Maestro won by simply snap crackle popping the Hulk's neck. That's it. Done. Over. And then he waited for the Hulk to heal, taunting him and villain monologuing at him the whole time about all the terrible things that they go through as the Hulk to create Maestro. The only way our Hulk could win was to bring Maestro back in time to when they gained their abilities, the Gamma Bomb, which destroyed Maestro on the atomic scale. The sheer idea of Maestro haunted Bruce and Hulk's thoughts for the rest of time, but of course, that wasn't really the end of Maestro, and he's been kind of floating around ever since. Number 3, Monk. Of all the alternate Hulks we've got here, none are quite like Monk. Monk comes from a little alternate universe story called 5 Ronin, which sees feudal Japanese versions of Wolverine, Punisher, Psylocke, Deadpool, and of course, the Hulk. What's interesting here is that none of these characters seem to have the superpowers that make them superheroes in the regular 616 universe, or if they do, their powers are extremely subtle and low-key, and an excellent example of that is the Hulk. From reading Hulk's issue of the 5-issue story, we can gather that Monk used to be a ferocious samurai back in his day. Monk is a massive man, and he wielded a massive sword, but in his warrior rages, he would do some pretty unspeakable things, and because of the last one to happen to him, he swore himself off of the warrior life and instead decided to set in his roots at the top of a mountain in a sort of sanctuary, just trying to find inner peace. Even when the nearby villagers came to the former samurai for help against some bandits, he refused until he was visited by a Ronin with a mouth, Deadpool, who convinced him to use his rage one last time. Number 2, Amadeus Cho. Now, unlike pretty much every other Hulk here, Amadeus Cho is not from an alternate universe to the main 616 Incredible Bruce Banner Hulk. By 15, Amadeus Cho was the 7th smartest person on the planet, with a mind that functioned like a hypercomputer, but that also put a target on his back and led him to become friends with another genius, Bruce Banner. Cho first popped up on the scene back in 2005, but it wasn't until 10 years later, in 2015, when the Hulk got stuck with a dangerous amount of a new type of radiation, that Amadeus took on a different form. Using special nanites, Amadeus absorbed the Hulk's powers, becoming a gamma-powered monster and the new totally awesome Hulk. But unlike Bruce, Amadeus found himself having much more control over his Hulk persona and prided himself on being a better and smarter Hulk. Unfortunately, over time that wouldn't last, especially when he exiled himself to find control and ended up on Sakaar. When he finally came back to Earth and declared war on all his enemies, he had to be stopped by his allies, and in doing so, they injected him with nanites that countered the ones he himself had placed in himself, and that's very confusing, I know. Amadeus didn't lose his Hulk powers, instead, he retained just a portion of the power and now goes by the superhero name Brawn. And finally, in at number 1, it's Aborigine Hulk. You ever heard of the House of M, when Wanda Maximoff changed reality to make the mutant Magneto the ruler of the world with his family and all that jazz? Well, in this world, when Bruce Banner transformed into the Hulk after the Gamma explosion, it is believed by Mr. Ross that he became a spy of Magneto, and he becomes hunted down like normal. But not like normal, he travels all the way to Australia, and he settles in with a group of Aborigine where he becomes a part of their tribe and finds an inner peace with Banner and the other guy, meaning the Hulk. But of course, the conflict between the mutants and the last remaining resisting humans finds its way to the outback and onto the territory of this Aborigine tribe. With kind of a control over the Hulk persona, Hulk and Banner help the humans halt their persecution by their mutant overlords, eventually helping AIM to rule Australia. I didn't think that would ever happen. There's this really cool moment where Hulk is using a whale to cover a submarine. I know that sounds confusing, but if you just look at it, I promise it's amazing.
And at 10, Blitzkrieg. Earth X Flash, or Blitzkrieg, was born and raised in a world where Germany won World War II. And since this is a sensitive subject for YouTube, I'm going to avoid using specific terms, so sorry in advance, but you know what I'm talking about. While his real name is unknown though, Der Blitz, as he's known in German, is a member of Geretskyliga, which is basically just an evil regime version of the Justice League, also referred to as the JL Axis. The current members are Brunhild, the Earth X Wonder Woman, Leatherwing, Earth X Batman, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, Flash, Green Lantern, and Overman, which is the Superman of Earth X. But this version of the Flash also appears in the Freedom Fighters The Ray animated series that takes place in the Arrowverse, but was interestingly missing from the Crisis on Earth X crossover event that featured characters from that show. Instead, this Flash was just Eobard Thawne of Earth 1 wearing Harrison Wells' face, who went and joined the regime, which is a whole other can of worms. But it leads people to believe that he killed the Earth X Flash in order to prove himself. And at 9, Kingdom Come Flash. Wally West from Earth 22 is weird to me, okay, since it feels kind of backwards. In the Kingdom Come universe of Earth 22, Wally West received his speed through unknown means, but nonetheless he still became the Flash. When Superman retired, Wally kept going, but he kept going and never stopped, running from scene to scene, disaster to disaster, never taking a break. For this, however, he had a daughter who got her speed genetically and became Kid Flash, but this is where it really gets weird. His children were named Iris West and Barry West. It kind of sets me on edge because they're supposed to be older than him, but like Wally is supposed to inherit the Flash mantle. Not to mention that this time Barry and Iris are actually biological siblings, which only makes all the memes about the Arrowverse even worse. But considering how Wanda and Pietro in the Ultimate Universe is a thing, this kind of thing isn't anything new for the comics. Gotta love those Game of Thrones stories, right? Okay, well in this universe his kids don't end up dating, but you know what I mean.
Number 8, Mangaverse. It gets really weird for Venom in the Marvel Mangaverse. In this reality, Venom is actually a master ninja and son of May Parker and her first husband, before she was married to Ben, Shinji. May in this reality is actually also a skilled ninja too, so Mangaverse guys, Mangaverse. Venom here is not directly attached to a symbiote himself, although in this reality there does exist a version of the symbiote, a black suit. This black suit actually came from a Shadow Clan amulet, and Venom does end up attached to the Shadow Clan, so there are some connections there. When Peter becomes corrupted by the black suit, Venom sacrifices himself to free Peter. Number 7, Mania. Mania is a clone of Venom. Mania was actually created from a sample of Venom that had been acquired. However, that hasn't stopped the symbiote from taking on a life all its own, as it's continued to evolve in the comics, acquiring new purposes and hosts along the way. The Mania symbiote was first created by the Ararat Corporation from a piece of Venom's tongue that they had harvested. It was intended to be used as a weapon to basically wipe out all life on the planet Earth, but this plan, well, it it didn't end up working out as they had hoped. And while initially the Mania symbiote became obsessed with feasting off of its victim's fear and literally eating people, it eventually found a stable host in Andy Benton, and even became a hero for a time. That is, before it was taken by the super sinister Lee Price, who himself was also one of the worst hosts the actual Venom symbiote ever had as well. Number 6. Venom 2099. Venom in the 2099 AD reality of Earth 928 is the brother of the Spider-Man of that era, Spider-Man 2099. Miguel O'Hara, Miguel's half-brother, is named Cron Stone, and he is Miguel's brother through his birth father, Tyler Stone, the head of Alchemex's research and development division. However, Cron never knew that Miguel was his brother, although he pretty much always hated Miguel, so I'm pretty sure even learning this wouldn't really change much between the two. After being left to die by the Punisher of 2099, whose family Cron was responsible for taking out, Cron ended up bumping into the Venom symbiote, which had mutated over the years. The symbiote bonded to Cron, and together they became the villain known as Venom. Number 5. Legion. Legion is another version of Venom that ended up being assimilated by him. Yeah, symbiote alternates can be kind of weird sometimes, to be honest. I mean, right now in the comics we technically have a bunch of Venoms that are all Eddie, but they're all like from different points in his life, and it just... symbiotes are weird. Legion was basically created by the maker and Eddie Brock, and was used to fight against Dark Carnage during the Absolute Carnage Venom-centric event. Dang, that was a fun event. Legion came to be thanks to a combination of codices which the maker was collecting on Earth 616 under the pretense of helping Venom to defeat Carnage. Now, in reality, the maker had his own plans for the collection of symbiote codices, which I don't think any of us are surprised by. However, those plans would not come to fruition as Eddie managed to bond with the maker's collection of codices in his fight against Dark Carnage, allowing him to defeat Carnage by summoning a Necro Sword to, well, defeat him. Following this, when he was once more bonded to the Venom symbiote, it absorbed the Legion symbiote into itself. So, no more Legion symbiote, but it did exist for a time. Number 4. MC2. In the MC2 reality, we get to explore a world where Peter Parker was allowed to actually grow up and settle down. He and Mary Jane end up having 2 children, May and Benji. If you are wondering what Venom is up to in this alternate future, the symbiote ends up separated from Eddie Brock and locked up for a long time. Now, when it finally breaks free, it seeks out Peter. Looking to remain bonded to him, Venom intends on isolating Peter, leaving him with no one but the symbiote, and kinda also hopes to torment Peter as payback for his rejection years prior. Venom, as such, intends to kill Peter's family while bonded with Peter so that he can make him watch. Fortunately, Peter's kids both end up with superpowers in this reality, and his daughter, Spider-Girl, aka Mayday, ends up stopping Venom, saving the day as well as her entire family. Number 3. What if the alien costume had possessed Spider-Man? In What If issue number 4, we find out the answer to this question. Here, Peter didn't realize until it was too late what his black suit truly was. No longer able to seemingly separate from Venom, Peter remains stuck with the symbiote. Although he attempts to get help, Venom uses its camouflage powers to make them impossible to find, also taking control of Peter whenever he attempts to actually reach out and contact Black Cat to get help. When Venom does end up in a battle with the other heroes, the symbiote actually chooses to jump ship to Hulk, leaving Peter drained of life energy. Appearing as a frail old man, Peter would soon pass away, dying of old age once he was abandoned. In another confrontation, Venom once again leaves Hulk for Thor, attempting to bond to him permanently. Fortunately, this process is interrupted by the arrival of Black Bolt, who, of course, successfully uses his sonic powers to separate Venom from Thor and also kinda incidentally destroy Mount Rushmore. Sorry about that one. At this moment though, Black Cat appears on the scene and uses a weapon to permanently defeat Venom, getting revenge for the man she loved who the symbiote had taken away from her. Number 2. Venom. One of the alternate versions of Venom is actually also a version of Gwen Stacy. This version of the character hails from the Earth 65 reality, Spider-Gwen's home reality. You might have heard of it, especially if you've seen Across the Spider-Verse. Here for a time, Gwen Stacy, often known as Spider-Woman, Spider-Gwen, or currently Ghost Spider, bonded with the Venom symbiote. In this reality, the Venom symbiote was created in a lab by Dr. Elsa Brock. It was used to return Gwen's spider-like powers to her through bonding with her. This version of of the symbiote is seemingly made up of jelly-like little spiders, which can come together and even shapeshift. However, this version of Venom was created based off of basically alien spiders. Initially, Gwen attempted to resist the offer to bond with the Venom symbiote because it was offered to her by her enemy, Matt Murdock, but desperate for a cure for her friend Harry Osborn, who, like Peter, had also used the lizard formula on himself, she ended up ultimately becoming one with the symbiote. Number 1. World of Codex. In the reality of Earth 1051, we get to see what would have happened had Dylan turned dark and become the extremely powerful villain known as Codex. In this reality, it was Anne Weying, not Eddie Brock, who became Venom after Peter rejected the symbiote. After a time, Venom adopted an armor-like appearance and changed their name to Agent Venom. Anne and the symbiote ended up having a child together that was half human, half symbiote. They named him Dylan. However, in this reality, Dylan does not become a hero, but instead becomes a villain after falling under the influence of the symbiote god Null. Taking up the name Codex, Dylan sought to conquer the world. Anne, as Agent Venom, was one of the heroes who fought against Codex in an effort to stop him, but ultimately failed. Following Codex's victory, Agent Venom carries on, continuing the fight underground as a member of the Resistance.
Starting off at number 10 today is Infernal Hulk. On Earth 11638, Bruce Banner was officially completely done with dealing with the unpredictability and rage of the Hulk. So, when Spider-Man introduced Bruce to Stephen Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme, Banner became his apprentice, and after lots of training in the mystic arts, learned how to separate himself from the Hulk entity. He did this by sending it to hell and making it a demon, and this was a great solution. Until the 616 Hulk, along with Deadpool and Spider-Man from 616, came to Earth 11638. The Infernal Hulk managed to enter back into the realm of Earth, swapping places with 616 Banner's Hulk persona. Infernal Hulk went after the new Sorcerer Supreme, Bruce Banner, who was saved by both Deadpool and Spider-Man. So, how did they defeat this demon Hulk? Well, Sorcerer Bruce reversed the banishing spell that sent Hulk to hell, and just before Infernal Hulk could return to his original Bruce Banner body, Bruce had his neck crickle-cracked, which brought him to the pearly gates. But his spirit lived on in the astral plane, so it's all good still. Number 9. Hulk 2099. This version of the Hulk, appearing in the awesome possible future of 2099, where Spider-Man 2099 makes his home, is a guy named John Eisenhart. He was a corporate lawyer for big movie studios who went to manipulate a group called the Knights of Banner, who were a cult-like group of warriors who followed the ideologies of Bruce Banner, which sounds very cool, and it is. John was going to gain the rights for their name in order to make a movie about them, all while giving them nothing in return. He turns them into this corporation called Sweet Dreams, thinking they'll be brought in peacefully, but it doesn't go that way at all. The only Knight of Banner who survives, Kid, goes to a gamma machine, but John saves the kid, pushing him out of the way and being blasted with gamma radiation. John can now turn into the Hulk whenever he wants. He has a super strong prehensile tongue, which is terrifying, and he is much more beast-like with massive claws. He is just as powerful as regular Hulk, but unfortunately his comics were not popular enough to last more than 12 issues. Maybe he'll get a resurgence. I doubt it though.
Number 8. 1602. King James is the alternate version of Wolverine that exists in the 1602 reality, or rather the 1602 reality as it exists in God Emperor Doom's Battle World, which appeared during the 2015 Secret Wars event. This version of Wolverine also has claws like his comic book counterpart, but is a villain instead of a hero. He is one of the witch breed that Sarah and Angela hunt down, with Charles Xavier taking over for James after he is defeated.
In its 7, Ultimate Wolverine. In this reality, Wolverine suffers from amnesia, and as a result, there's little known about his early life, but what is known is both suspect and unverifiable. It is believed that at one point, Wolverine had a wife and child, but they were supposedly killed by Sabretooth. As both Wolverine and Sabretooth's memories have been tampered with in this past timeline, this claim is suspect. However, if both of their memories were altered, maybe it does have some validity. Wolverine did own a wedding ring that serves as his only link to his past, not the game. That's a whole other thing, that's a different channel. But this version of Wolverine has the healing factor, disease resistance, toxin resistance that, damn, I wish I had 2 years ago. Extended longevity, superhuman senses, the stamina. The ladies love him because of that too. He has that agility, the reflexes, the classic adamantium-laced skeleton, and retractable claws. He's experienced in hand-to-hand combat. He's an expert assassin. He can lift 800 pounds. Like, bro, come on. Can you even lift? Spider-Man lifts twice that when he's taking it easy, okay? And that's not even in the symbiote suit, which I guess technically doesn't count and doesn't exactly exist. But you know what? Let's ignore that. He's still cool.
Number 6. The Punisher. In the What If Wolverine one-shot issue number 1 from 2005, here we get to imagine what the world might have been like had Wolverine become Punisher instead of Frank Castle. The story is set a bit in the past and imagines what it would be like if Logan had lost his family and sought revenge. In this version of the tale, Wolverine goes up against Scarface, who has Logan's family killed. His wife in this universe is Silver Fox, and together the two had a son. Scarface also might be a character that you'll actually recognize from the main Marvel universe here. He's an alternate version of Logan's half-brother Dog, who you may know from the Wolverine origin story and comic series.
Halfway through into number 5, Wild Thing. On Earth 982, Rena was the new girl at a high school where some of the more popular girls tried to make her life miserable because, you know, it's high school. Stating that she was the daughter of an immigrant and an unemployed biker, but her father is Logan. You know, Wolverine. So he picked her up from school on his bike, and opinions changed about her. Because, you know, yeah. Especially when they learned that her mother, Elektra, was a wealthy martial arts expert. Gotta love high school. However, life at high school wasn't just about dealing with the crowd, because as Wild Thing, Rena had to save a classmate from a high-speed kidnapper, defeat a computerized assassin, stop a demonic invader, and even fight one of her teachers when he was turned into a prime sentinel. Yeah, jeez. That's just high school. Another Sky High reference for those that are keeping track. Rena first appeared in J2 number 5 in 1998 and was created by Ron Lim and Tom DeFalco, even if technically she was created by Logan and Elektra, if you get the joke.
Number 4. Albert. I love Albert. He is the android alternate of Wolverine who was designed by Donald Pierce. Remember him? I remember him. Pierce created Albert along with LCD as part of a plan to trap Wolverine and have him destroyed. Fortunately for Wolverine, LCD was given the wrong level of sort of a logic machine in her mind and managed to find a way around her and Albert being used as such, ultimately freeing Albert and LCD in the end of their obligation to kill Logan. Albert was given his name by LCD after Albert Einstein, who she compared his intelligence to after she severely upgraded him all by herself.
Getting close to the end in number 3, Wolverine Pool. Wade Wilson from Earth TRN 1946 was bonded with adamantium through his skeleton by the Weapons Plus program. He was later recruited by Deadpool or Dreadpool for his army, and he killed Deadpool Pulp before the arrival of Galactipool. I wish that this was a joke. He was attacked by Deadpool with a grenade from which bugs and other it ate all of his flesh, leaving behind only his skeleton and his claws, which was seemingly the same as Earth 616's Wolverine's skeleton and claws. But like, it's a Deadpool. It's Deadpool in Wolverine's body. That also has the same scarring that regular Deadpool has. Wolverine Pool's healing factor is most likely weaker than 616 Wolverine or Deadpool's healing factor, which makes him less dangerous, but come on, okay? A combination of Wolverine and Deadpool is something that we should all fear, and most likely do, but I'm surprised Deadpool didn't make this a thing at the end of Deadpool 2 when he was correcting everything that he had done wrong. He should have done this, that would have been funny.
Number 2, Talon. Laura Kinney is obviously one of my favorite versions of the Wolverine character, and she herself has also technically been Wolverine. Initially known as X-23, Laura was actually created to be a clone of Logan. Her mother, Sarah Kinney, initially tried to create a clone of Logan, but was unsuccessful due to the Y chromosome being damaged. Instead, she attempted to compensate for this by using some of her own genetic material to supplement the parts of the genetic sequence that were basically damaged and missing, creating a female clone instead. It worked, but her work was damaged by her rival, Dr. Xander Rice, forcing Sarah to become a surrogate for the clone if she wanted to save her work. Sarah did just that, and X-23 was born. For years, X-23 was raised to be only a weapon, but eventually, after the members of the program turned on each other, she was able to secure her freedom. Unfortunately, along with her freedom came loss. Loss of her purpose in the world, and loss of the few people involved in the program who had genuinely cared for her, including her mother, Sarah, who named Laura with her last dying breath. Later, Laura would go on to track down Wolverine and attempt to kill him, seeing herself and her genetic father as nothing more than deadly and dangerous weapons. However, through meeting Logan, X-23 also found a sense of family, and eventually would even come to join the X-Men team. And I mean, spoiler alert, she doesn't end up killing Wolverine, in case you didn't know. Currently, she goes by the codename of Talon.
And finally, in at number 1, Dark Claw. Logan Wayne is obviously a combination of Bruce Wayne and Logan, being first introduced in Marvel vs. DC number 3. At 5 years old, after witnessing his parents' death at the hands of an armed robber, Logan Wayne was sent to live with his uncle in Alberta, Canada. I'm sorry, dude, Alberta sucks. His uncle was a member of the RCMP, or the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for those of you who use the Imperial system, and was ambushed and killed by poachers a short time after Logan's arrival. After the death of his uncle, Logan was sent to live in a home run by nuns, and as soon as he was old enough, he enlisted in the RCAF, the Royal Canadian Air Force. I don't know if they have an acronym, but it just felt right. Logan was submitted to the Weapon X project, which was a Canadian super soldier program, and then from there, it's kind of the same thing. His bones were bonded to adamantium, and he discovered that he was a meta-mutant, which is just the meta-mutants in this dimension, but yeah, it's Batman and Wolverine, okay? He has all the powers of Logan and a clawcopter and clawmobile. That's awesome. I want this in the MCU. If they're fixing the DCEU so that we can do this, that would be great.